So we are both totally in alignment how important this is. I know
Yes.
that one of the research elements of what you're doing is you're seeing where it's happening that it's really done well. And can you tell me like what is going well? So I'm a school district leader listening to you right now. Where is it going well? And like if I feel we need to kind of get on a better path, where would you suggest someone start? Like where would you suggest maybe where they look, what they start with in
Yeah.
their school? How would they go through that process?
So I'm gonna answer that two ways. I'm gonna answer first, I'm gonna tell a state story that I have to tell because I've been
Go.
on a I've been on a soapbox this year that this story that I coined the Southern Surge story of four states that have had reading growth that outpaces the rest of the country is a perfect segue to the district level answer to your question. Even though districts aren't going to necessarily enact policies the way that states enact
Can I
policies.
interrupt you for a second? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, yeah.
Is the Southern Surge your terminology or is that
Yep.
okay?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
made that up. I made that up.
I love that. I did not know that, but I like always see I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's so
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I always watch you talking about that.
that's my thing. And I'll tell you how that came to be too.
Okay.
So you've heard my story. I got into this during the Common Core era. And in those early years, Louisiana was this state that was making really early investments. Louisiana said this Common Core thing means a lot. We really get the knowledge part of the importance to comprehension. They had a lot of people who'd read E.D. Hirsch's book. E.D. Hirsch did a lot of really powerful writing about the importance of knowledge to critical thinking and comprehension, but also that we need to give kids all like a certain amount of baseline knowledge so they had what he called cultural literacy, like you can't be a literate American debating democracy if you don't have certain foundational knowledge about what a democracy is one example.
Mhm.
So they'd all read E.D. Hirsch, they all really believed in this, and they leaned really hard into making all districts pick knowledge building and structured literacy curriculum more than a decade ago. So I've been watching Louisiana story all this time, and I saw this coming. I visited schools there. And Tennessee followed Louisiana a couple years later. But then Mississippi started emerging because they were doing more teacher training and coaching led work to uh, really get reading foundations right. They focus less on the comprehension and the knowledge part in the beginning. They focus more on we're going to send coaches into schools, state coaches. Starting in 2013, they passed this Literacy Based Promotion Act where they said we're going to send state coaches in 2, 3 days a week to coach you on reading foundations in elementary schools. And if you're in the bottom 20% of schools on performance, we're going to require all teachers to go through a really substantive training about how the brain learns to read. And then we're going to assume that in those bottom 20% of schools, you're all going to pick better curriculum and have better practices. About 5 years into that journey, they realized the schools weren't necessarily changing curriculum fast enough. So then they pushed curriculum change. They've done more since then. But Mississippi also led with third grade retention. They said, in addition to the things I just mentioned, you've got to have screening of all your kids. You're going to screen 3 times a year with a mandated, a state selected screener. You're going to know if your kids are struggling before they hit third grade. But if they go through all that we just described, they're going to have really well prepared teachers, using good curriculum, screened 3 times a year from kindergarten to third. If a kid's not reading by then, we're not passing them on because we know that a struggling reader isn't going to be successful in sixth grade biology if they can't read at third grade reading level. So they instituted third grade retention. And that many people point to as a really key part of this mousetrap. I don't profess to be expert on how the third grade retention added to or didn't add to the mix there. I know some people think that you know that can be a contentious topic, and I'll be honest. In the beginning, I didn't believe third grade retention should be happening. I thought that was I believed a lot of the research that we looked at, 5 or 6 years ago, saying, "Hey, that might hurt kids more than it helps." But I've really come around on this because it's so clear that this is what third grade retention seems to have done in these states is it influences adult behavior. It makes everybody pull out all the stops because nobody wants to
Right.
tell a child that they're not going to pass on to fourth grade and say that to families. So it seems to just the whole system gets effectively aligned around, if we're screening, if we've got this coaching, if we have all these things going right. Mississippi just started successfully getting kids to that proficiency line before third grade at a rate that outpaces the rest of the country. And now they're really starting to show up as a NAEP